Okay, so welcome to Lifespan Development. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. This is one of my favorite classes. I've changed a couple of things around from last semester, which was only about it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Wasn't that long ago. I've changed a couple things around. So I'm gonna talk about the assignments right now and the due dates for the assignments, and I'm going to talk about the exams and the study guides for the exams. And then I'm going to talk about the expectations for the class. And then I'm going to spend probably a fair amount of time talking through a little bit about what lifespan development is and what to expect during the class, and kind of go over a little bit about what to expect from the book. The book, if you have the book already, hopefully everyone has it, is extremely thick and very detailed. It's a lot in the book. We could probably spend, 2 semesters on the book, but we only have 10 weeks. So we're going to do the best we can to hit the stuff that's important for us, which obviously all of it's important. But I'm going to spend time on a few places. So, in what I usually do is I just trust that you guys will read, and I'm not going to regurgitate what the book's saying every time we meet. I'm going to talk about specific topics and specific issues that relate to lifespan development. So the next few classes that we meet, we're going to like today, we're talking intro, like kind of what lifespan development is. The next time we meet, we're going to talk about basically childhood into early adolescence, which when I say childhood, I'm going to focus on the elementary age up until around junior high. And then the next class we meet, we're actually going to talk about emotions and how they develop throughout the whole lifespan. And then the fourth class will be basically late adolescence, which is kind of like end of high school into middle adulthood, or middle emerging adulthood. And then the last class is kind of a wrap up where we'll talk about endings. So it's from everyone from adulthood to older adulthood. And so we're going to spend a majority of our time in these classes talking about specific things. I'm not going to just regurgitate everything the book says. I do have slides that I'll use, and I'll put those up online. And then periodically during the semester, I have placed videos that you can watch. You can watch them anytime. About 3 semesters ago, I started doing or including a adult attachment inventory that I use with my couples, because I talk a lot about attachment theory, and so I just included that. So, and then on the Moodle site, on the top of the page. See, I don't know what y'all's site looks like compared to mine. I don't know if they might look the same, but I have put 2 or 3 things there that are not assignment related, but they will help you as you go through the program, and they should also help you with the exam when you get ready to do either the LPC or LMFT exam or the school counseling exam. And so one of those is a developmental period synopsis. So it basically gives a synopsis of all the periods. I've got one that's a developmental theories, basically gives like a general overview of all the developmental theories that's there. And then I've also got an APA guide that I usually give that to all my classes. So those are just things you can check out, and those are just there for you. Okay, now let's talk about the assignments real quick. I've got a video there online on Moodle that does an explanation of the assignments as well. I'm going to try to pull something up here so we can look at it together. Come on. open. Well, let's see if it's going to open for me. In the book, as you look through, there are sections in the book. There's usually 2 or 3. Some chapters might have 4, but there's usually 2 or 3 sections inside the book that are called Review, Connect, and Reflect. And they're little boxes within the text that periodically will go over material that was just covered in the text. And I use those for the exercises. The main reason is because it helps you retain things that you're reading. And so the assignment for the exercises are in 2 parts. The first part is you'll just literally go through and answer the questions that are in the Review, Connect, and Reflect sections. Some sections have 2 or 3 questions. Other sections might have 5 or 6 questions. The review part is literally just reviewing everything you just read. The Connect is connecting to something in your life, or sometimes there's a story there that you'll connect with, but there'll be questions with it. And then the reflection part typically is exactly what it sounds like. You're reflecting on something you just read or learned, or something you thought about as you were reading. The reason why I like this assignment is because it allows you to continue to process the information as you're reading, and that really helps you retain information over time. And so what I'm asking for the assignment is you're going to pick 2 of those little Review, Connect, Reflect boxes to do per assignment. So the first part, answering the questions, you'll just turn that into me and you'll just upload that into Moodle. The second part of it is a forum discussion that you'll have a week to post and read and comment on other people's posts. And so all you'll do for that one is just pick one of the Review, Connect, Reflects that you did. You don't have to pick both of them, but just pick one of them. And you're just literally just posting up your reflection on the assignment. This is really, to me, this is one of the best parts of this class. And I actually do this assignment even if we meet in person, because what it does is allow for more discussion over things that you are reflecting on. And inevitably, it helps you bring up something that other people wouldn't have known about or thought about. So it's just kind of a way for us all to learn from each other. And the reason why I do it this way is because there's so much information. There's just a lot going on. My suggestion about doing this assignment, in the past, I have allowed students to just pick whatever section. Like if you wanted to skip ahead 3 or 4 or 5 chapters and pick a Review, Connect, Reflect out of those chapters, you can do that. I would suggest that you stay with what we're reading at the time. It probably helps you retain it better. But if you want to skip forward, that's fine. Some people do that. I just think it's a little easier with the information to kind of stick with what we're doing. So hopefully that makes sense. Do you have any question about that? And it'll make a ton more sense as you start doing it. And the first one's not due until next Saturday. So you have a week. And obviously, anytime you have questions, just let me know. And I can kind of help you. I've put a video description up and I put a couple of PowerPoints up about it. It's just something that as you keep as you're reading and you come across one of those boxes, it's probably easy to just go ahead and knock it out. That's what I would do. But you'll do 2 of those per assignment. Okay.
So Mr. Bennett, just a question. So the summary is over the Review, Connect, and Reflect, and then we're posting just the reflecting part.
Yeah, you're just gonna choose. Like I'm looking at the first.
Yeah, like I'm on page 12. If I pick that one,
Mhm.
That would be my summary. I would summarize the review, connect, and reflect, turn it in by the 20th, and then I would just reflect off of. I would post that the whole thing, or just my reflection with my
Now, what?
classmate.
Let me share something. Hang on a second. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys real quick. You guys see this page right here? Hopefully.
Yes.
So, so this would be so. Um, you would pick two of those: review, connect, reflect. So you're on page 12. That's fine. You can pick that one, and then choose
Okay.
another one in that chapter. And you're gonna whatever you write out from those questions, you're gonna turn into me right here on part A.
Okay.
And then when you get to the forum, I typically have been putting like, hey, choose one stage. Why don't you choose that stage? What did you learn? You're not going to post your entire assignment. You're just going to post what you learned and why you picked that stage. And I've got different questions for each of these forum discussions that'll kind of help you post things. In other words, I don't want people posting paragraph after paragraph. The forums are supposed to be a little bit shorter.
Okay.
We're not talking about something super long when we get there. And uh, hope so. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Let me go back over here. Okay.
I have a question that
Yeah.
concerns the format.
Sure.
When we're doing this assignment, do you want us to actually write out the question, then the answer underneath, or do you want it more all, to make sense in paper format?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like when you write out the question so that I know what you're doing.
What we're answering?
Yeah, I mean it is a short.
Okay.
It's in essence a short essay assignment, right? It's not like a paper
Right.
assignment where you're doing research. Like you don't have to give citations because I know where you're getting the information. You're getting everything from the books.
Okay.
You're not citing
That
anything. It's
perfect. That
usually
was going to be
better
my
to
next
just go ahead
question
and
is if you want to.
yeah. So you don't have to worry about citing because I know where you're getting information.
Okay, perfect.
You're literally just kind of answering those questions as you go through.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure
Mhm.
if you wanted the question written out and then the answer, or if you just wanted it kind of summarized all together, kind of makes sense. So that's good to
Yeah,
know. Thank you.
yeah, that's no problem. No problem. Good question. Anybody else?
You may already have mentioned this, but the due date is next Saturday, the
That's right.
20th, right?
That's right. That's right. And and I'll go over this in a second. Let me make sure if there's any other questions about this, I want to stop and make sure. Make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to share my screen again here. Can everybody see this one, hopefully?
Mhm.
Make it a little bit bigger here. Okay, these are all the due dates for all the assignments and all the Zoom classes for the semester. I went ahead and put this on Moodle. You should have it. I'm going to go back and double check that the Moodle dates and these dates are the same. I believe that they are, but I'm going to double check them just to make sure. Because I did make a couple of adjustments on this sheet. So this sheet is the correct, all these dates are correct. The only thing that could potentially change are like the exam dates, but I'll let you guys know in advance. But you're usually going to have 4 or 5 days to complete the exam. So the exercise one, the exercises I just kind of gone over that. You'll have a part A, which will be due to me on a Saturday, like this next one's due a week from today. And then you'll typically have a week to post to the forum and read other people's posts and make comments on those posts. I typically give you a week between when you turn something into me and when you make a forum post. So we'll do exercises 1 and 2. Those will be the first 2 things that we'll do. Then we'll have a midterm. And then we'll do exercise 3. And then the reflection paper, which I'll talk about specifically here in a second, will be due way. It seems like it's far off, but May will get here pretty quick. And then our final exam will be the last thing we do. And let me take some time here and talk about the exams. So we'll do a midterm exam and a final exam. There's 75 points apiece. And I know for a fact I've had some of you in other classes, so you can tune me out because you already kind of know what I'm going to say. But if you guys go through and do the study guides for the exams, you'll do really well on the exams. If you don't do the study guide, like if you just decide I'm just going to read and follow along and then take the exam, it's going to be hard for you. The reason is because there's 2 reasons. The study guide looks suspiciously similar to the exam, like basically exactly the same thing on purpose. The second reason is that you can use your study guide in your book on the exam. That's fine. You can use that material. I do the exam the way I do it, and I do the study guide the way I do it because I want you to learn. I'm not here to fail people. I'm here to help you learn. I want you to be able to pick things up, and we all have different learning styles. And so I am trying to incorporate 2 or 3 learning styles into how I do the exams and how I do the study guide. Some people are repetition really helps them. Some people are very visual. Some people are auditory. I'm trying to do my best to hit all of those as much as I can. And what I find is that doing the study guide and the exams this way hits as many learning styles as possible. And so there's not a lot of, I'm not trying to fool people. Like I'm not trying to pull a fast one. If you do the study guide, the questions on the exam look exactly like it. There's no difference, and maybe that's because, I don't know. As a student, I didn't like when teachers used to pull fast ones and give you surprise questions and stuff. And I decided when I started teaching, I wasn't going to do that because I don't think it's fair. And honestly, you guys have enough to worry about. You don't need to worry about surprise things on the exam. So if you do the study guide, you'll do great. Also on Moodle, I've got a couple of different, I've got a couple of different exam forums for you. Because what I also find is that students, as you go through the study guide, sometimes you get different answers to the same question and you might have questions about it. And since we don't meet every single week, those forums allow you a chance to talk to each other. Like, hey, on question 25, I got this, what'd you guys get? And you can talk with each other about it. Now, when we have class, I'm going to save some time at the beginning to talk about any questions you have about the study guides. Because a lot of the things that are on the study guide are application kinds of questions. In other words, you're going to learn some information and then apply it to the question. And so I like you doing these forum guides for you. You don't have to use it. It's just there for you if you want to use it. And then I've also had students in the past, even online, that have gotten together and done study sessions together. And that seems to help people too. So there's lots of different ways to go about taking the exam. Those are just a few of them. Now let's talk about the paper real quick. And again, all of these instructions and everything is on Moodle, so you can see it there. I'm going to share this. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So this is kind of a hybrid research paper and reflection paper. Again, if you've had my classes before, I do a lot of reflection kind of work because I think it helps you process information. So part of this paper is a reflection piece, and you can see down here, that's the bottom 15 points worth is a reflection part. The research part is everything here at the top. And so what I'm asking you to do is pick out a stage, or one stage of life. For example, older adulthood. I'll just use older adulthood as an example because I've had quite a few folks write on this recently. Older adulthood would be your example. You're going to go through and talk about cognitively, social, emotionally, physically, or biologically. Just give like a basic information about that stage. You're going to talk about things that you learned about that stage of development as you went through the class. And then you're going to choose either a disorder. It could be a psychological disorder. It could be something like, if we're talking about older adulthood, dementia or Alzheimer's. It could be something like that. And that's kind of where a lot of your research will come in, because you'll start researching that particular disorder or issue. And then you're going to talk about treatment options as if you were a clinician working with someone. And you'll find, again, that's kind of where the research pieces of it come in. And so you'll kind of combine all of those 4 areas together. Then you'll jump down here to the reflection part. Why don't you pick that topic? Or what did you learn? Did your opinion change about it before you started and after you started? Or did it stay the same? Are there other things you'd like to pursue or study or research? All of those things are part of the paper. I need you to use at least 3 additional sources. You can use the book that you're reading now, that's fine. But I need you to use 3 additional sources other than the book. Typically, the best place to do that is research articles. That's what I would say. And that's where you're going to get most of your information about either a disorder you're looking at or an issue that happens to come up in that stage of development. The reason why I've been a little bit vague about like what to choose is because in the past I've had people choose things like parenting styles or corporal punishment or how divorce might affect children or divorce affects adolescents. I mean, there's different kinds of things that typically come up when you're a clinician. When you're working with people, you're going to have various issues come up, and they affect different parts of the lifespan in different ways. So I'm a little bit open with what you choose. Now, if you need help narrowing down, like you're like, hey, I kind of like this topic and this lifespan or developmental stage, but I'm having trouble kind of narrowing down, just let me know and I can help you. I can ask you some questions and help you narrow your focus. And so this particular paper is one that I think is super helpful for us to take a bunch of information and kind of narrow it down so we can use it. And what I typically find is students that have an area of interest already, like if some of you think, I think I'm going to work with adolescents, let's say, you probably want to write on that. You want to write, that would be your area. Or I think I'm going to work with children. You're going to want to probably research and write on that. I do have some people that write on things that they think they'd never be interested in or something that's brand new that they want to learn about. You can do that too. It's really up to you. But the assignment's pretty open. This is a typo. I'll get rid of that. I'll fix that. I'll fix that on Moodle. That was just a typo. I used to have a chart that went with this and I got rid of that because that's too much work. So the big question I always get, because you'll notice I don't put a page limit on this assignment. Everyone's always wanting to know how many pages to write, which good grad students always going to want to know how many pages we need to write. I think that's smart. this assignment can be done between 4 and 6 pages, I think. I don't think it would be tough to do that. One rule of thumb in graduate school is you think about 1 page per reference, typically, is what you typically think of. So that would be probably 4 pages. 6 pages is probably plenty. More than 6 pages that's a lot. Seems like a lot. I think 4 to 6 is probably just fine. Any question about this particular assignment? Okay. I'm the greatest communicator that's ever communicated in the world. Okay. And again, this is all on Moodle. So it's all up there. You can check it out. Okay. Awesome. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. All right. Okay. So for our classes, the Zoom classes, I've done classes on every day of the week, and except for Saturday. And so this is the first time I'm doing it on a Saturday. The classes are not, you don't have to be here. I'm always going to record them. I think it's good if you're here because we have pretty good discussion. But I know that other classes, and I know for a fact there's one other class in the counseling program that's on Saturday. I think it's at 10. I want to say maybe 10, but I can't remember exactly. And so I'm not expecting, none of us professors are trying to compete for your time. You guys can make decisions and choose whichever way you want to go. And just know that we'll record these classes, and I'll always put those up online. But I'm shooting to have these classes at 9 o'clock from 9 to around 10:30 every other Saturday. So basically, it's kind of like when I typically teach this class when we come back to the classroom, which eventually we will be back in the class. This is usually a Saturday class. So I'm kind of keeping it in that format. And so I think we're going to shoot to start the class around 9. I am going to talk to the other professor that's teaching during this time to see if they're going to keep their class at the same time. And we might make some adjustments for each other. So, but it won't be something crazy like 6 in the morning. It's not going to be anything. It's going to be, if it's earlier than 9, it would be like 8:30. It's not going to be super crazy, which some of you, that might sound crazy, but that's like sleeping in for me. So, anyway, it's always going to be on Saturday. The goal right now is we're going to shoot for 9 o'clock, unless I talk to the other professor, and if I need to make some adjustments, I will. But I'll let you know way ahead of time, like Monday. I'll let you know, and I'll adjust it on the sheet here too. But the dates are the same. We're going to meet on those dates, and the only thing that would change is I do offer every once in a while during the semester, depending on kind of how things are going. Sometimes I do offer like an open like office hours on Zoom on a Friday. On certain Fridays, I'll do that too. Especially if we get closer to like the paper. A lot of times people want to ask questions about that. If we get 3 or 4 weeks out from the paper, I'll have some office hours then. But you can always contact me and ask questions. I'm going to send out my, I don't know if I did this already, but I will. I'll send out my work cell phone number so you can text me too if you ever have questions. And I'll give you my work email as well, because the Moodle email is fine. It's just you have to log into the system to respond. And sometimes it's just quicker to use my work one. But I'll send, if I haven't done it already, which I don't think I have done yet, I'll send that out to you so you'll have it. Okay. All right. Any questions about any of the stuff we've talked about so far?
Here.
Any questions about anything? All right. Is everybody awake? I hope. All right. Okay. How many people we got here? We got, let me get over here and check this. 10. Okay, good. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of expectations, but first, I want to hear from you a little bit about your expectations. And so, what I'd love to know is a couple of things. I want to know a little bit about what you're expecting from the class, whether that's an expectation, for me or the material or the subject. I'd love to know, like, what you're hoping to learn from the class. And that could be lots of different things. But I also would like to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to ask, and normally I would do groups, but we have a kind of a small class today. So we'll just do this, like, we won't break out into groups today. I would love to hear a little bit more about you in terms of, hey, I'm doing the LPC program, or I'm doing school counseling, or sometimes we get folks from like the business world that this is an elective. I mean, whatever it is that's going on for you, I kind of like to know, because it helps me kind of personalize a class a little bit too for you. And so I'd love to hear what you're expecting, what you want to learn, and then a little bit like, are you doing LPC, LMFT, that kind of thing. And I'm not going to call you out. I'm just going to let you jump in whatever you want. So whoever wants to go first, that'd be awesome.
I'll go first. My name is Shelly. I have to jump off early, so I'll volunteer to go first. I'm really looking forward to this class. I'm getting my LPC. This is my third semester at Amberton. And I think, for me, what I'm looking forward to is, I think, delving more into adolescent development, and for a personal reason, and that's because I have an adolescent and I'm struggling with her. And she's actually my fourth child, so she's not my first rodeo at all. But she's got some depression and anxiety, maybe brought on by the COVID and the quarantine and the Zoom and all of that. Who knows? But I think that's really, overall, I think this is an interesting topic. But for me in particular, I'm looking for just learning more about adolescent development and, maybe disorders that adolescents face.
Yeah, great. Shelly, where do you live?
I live in Fort Worth.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think I just read a Wall Street Journal article about Zoom fatigue. It's a legit deal, mainly if you're extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah,
for sure. I have that as well.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, we're going to talk about all that. That's good. Anybody else?
I'll go next, but my video for some reason isn't working, so I'm sorry you can't see my face, but I'll get it fixed. I think I need to update my Zoom. I'm going to do the school counselor program. So this is one of the classes in there, but I'm looking forward to learning about different stages, especially children, because I work at an elementary school. I'm a 5th grade science teacher. So I think it'll be good to learn about the different stages and all the issues that they're facing presently with just life that they have to deal with, dysfunctional homes. And I work at a Title I school district, so there's a lot of poor kids in our school. So how to interact with them appropriately in counseling.
Hey, Kim, where did you say where you live? I might have missed it.
No, I live outside of Dallas in Combine, Texas, near Seagoville, maybe. It's a little country.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes my internet doesn't work that great.
Oh,
But I teach
okay.
in Kaufman, which is,
Okay.
yeah, if you know where that is.
I do. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Awesome.
Hi, I'm Kendra. So this is my fourth semester at Amberton. I'm going for my LPC. And I'm really interested in learning more about the developmental theories, and also challenging myself to learn more about like the adult and elderly, because I already work with the adolescent population. So I do want to learn more about those two factors.
Awesome. Good.
I can go next if you're done, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
So my name's Monica. I'm working on my LPC currently, but I'm trying to decide if I want to do LMFT or not. I'm on my second semester, so I'm pretty new, but I do have a substance abuse counseling, licensed chemical dependency counseling license. So I kind of went backwards, but I think that kind of gives me different expectations because I've worked with like dozens of people in point. And so I see how important the lifespan development has been and how important it is to be aware of how those things have affected people that have gotten into a really bad situation. So I think that's something that is extra important to me. I have different eyes, I think, now than I would before having worked with those people, because I really feel like I really want to get a good grasp on what is going on so that I can help people going forward with a lot more knowledge about it.
Yeah, that's great. How long have you done LCDC work?
I did that for about 3 years. My plan was to get my bachelor's degree and go straight into this, but I kind of I had some issues that made me say like, well, just in between getting ready for my master's, I just got that license. And I think that it was kind of like silver lining to backtrack a little bit, because now that I'm doing my master's program, I feel like I see how relevant so many things are. And I'm not trying to look at it as like, if anything, I hope it encourages people to like know how important it is, how important these things are, because I would be working with people, and while I had skills for helping them get through the rehab part and the 12-step programs and stuff, having this part would help immensely, so that's why I'm kind of looking at it retroactively. Like every time something comes up in the book or something, I'm thinking like, oh, remember that client that could have used this,
Yeah,
so
sure.
So that's one thing I'm hoping to kind of expand on.
Good. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Good. Who's next?
Well, my name is Z. It's nice to meet and see everyone. Those of you that I can actually see and those that I can hear, it's nice to hear you. I am here doing a licensed professional counselor degree, and this is my third semester at Amberton. I'm pretty excited. This is kind of like a I don't know, it's like I'm reliving things. I went back later in life and got my undergrad after I raised the majority of my kids. I still have a 16-year-old, but I think it was my season. So I just got my undergrad last year and just kept going, because, I'm over 50 and it's, it's a thing. It's a thing. If I stop, I'll probably not do it. So
Yeah.
I just chose to just continue to go. But what I'm learning, I didn't really know exactly what my bend was, but I just finished a addiction counseling class. And oh my gosh, I definitely feel drawn and pulled that is my calling. So I'm kind of following that guide. But as far as this assignment is concerned, I am teaching a parenting class, and the majority of my students have children that are infant up to age 6. And for whatever the reason, their children are not with them. Okay. And I think that there's a connection disparity. And I think it's called, oh, Professor, you may have to remind me, is it like an attachment theory, a breakdown? So just because one of them, I remember she specifically came in and said that her caseworker told her, you have to be in a parenting class that is that teaches nurturing. So that, that's on my mind. And of course, as Shelley had mentioned, adolescence, because I've got one. So I'm kind of tossed between the two, but it's so much that's offered. I'm sure I won't have a problem figuring it out, but I am super excited to be here, and I wish us all the best over the next course of the 10 weeks.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Oh, good morning.
I'll
to
go
y'all.
next. Oh.
Okay, I'm gonna go first. My name's Veronica, and I've been a teacher for about 12 years, and I'm changing from a classroom teacher to be a SPED teacher. I'm just gonna put that as a challenge for myself. So I think lifespan, it's also a review because you have to know lifespan to be a teacher. And some of these things are very relevant to my work and what I've done in the past. I also learn more about the older part of human development because eventually I want to be a family advocate in the community, and I want to be able to help those people as well. What else? I also want to learn about disorders that happen during the childhood. That way I can help the kids a little better. And then eventually I want to become a diagnostician so that I can just, assess those kids and give them like the proper help in school that they need.
Yeah, that's great. So you said you're moving did you say special ed?
No, I was a bilingual teacher for 12 years.
Okay.
And then I, this year I had to stay at home with my own kids.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really, better else to do than going back to school.
Okay.
And I think that was a reflective moment for me. And, I was like, well, teaching has not been an easy job, but I'm going to take it a step farther and be SPED teacher and eventually become, a diagnostician. And then one day, not only money, I'll become a nonprofit organization and just be in the community. Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Oh, another thing, I was in a study group last class and it helped so much. So if anybody's interested, let me know and we can set it up.
Yeah, study groups are good. I find they're even good when we're distance like this. It really does help. It's good.
Yeah, and he puts the human touch on the classroom, like community sense. And I also love to hear from different disciplines, their perspective. So I appreciate you guys sharing because as a classroom teacher, you just see what's in the classroom, but it's also the kids' life, it's affected by, all these other factors. So I do appreciate you guys sharing because it seems very interesting to me.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. My name is Micah Miles, and I am actually getting my master's in family studies with specialization in Christian counseling. And I took a child development course in my undergrad studies and fell in love with the class, the whole discipline, the psychology behind it. And being an older student, you read this material and you just have so many aha moments like, oh, this totally makes sense now. And so I am actually, I think, more appreciative at my age now going through school and more determined knowing what I want, that this, the focus and the materials that we go are so intriguing that you don't really appreciate it when you're a youngster. So I am looking forward to learning more from, I guess, 18 to elder adult, because that part didn't extend for me in my child development class. So I'm intrigued to learn the new material. And I'm looking to work with younger kids or even in a I guess, addict environment with our church, and the people that we work with closely have a very strong relationship with Teen Challenges. If you're familiar, it's a rehab facility for adults and teens. So I just look forward to gaining information that I can spread and help other people with.
Yeah, good. And Micah, where do you live?
I live in Caddo Mills, like
Okay.
between Rockwall and Greenville.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
I failed to mention I'm in the Metroplex of Dallas in a city called DeSoto, Texas.
Oh, cool. All right.
I'll go. My name is Jessica Ajayi. I am working on my LPC. I had to take about a 1.5 year break, but I'm back. I think I might do LMFT too. I know there's only a few course differences, and I really thoroughly enjoyed my marriage and family therapy course. It was awesome. So still thinking about that, but I do have a lot of interest here with, I guess, young adulthood, like college age kids, just because I know how personally just all over the place I was a few years ago. And also it wanting to be a specific demographic I'd like to work with in the future, or at least one of them. So I do look forward to studying them, and also toddlers, because my niece is 2. These new generations are incredibly tech savvy as soon as they come out the womb, but just wanting to learn more about her emotional development and things like that right now. So those are a couple of things I look forward to, and I am here in Mesquite, Texas.
Cool. Yeah, is that Dr. Hebbert's class? The couple
Yeah.
class? Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, that's a great class.
Yeah.
Good.
Hi, my name is Letty Monreal. I am here in Mesquite. I've been a teacher for 17 years, and I am doing my master's in school counseling. This is just my 3rd class, so everything is pretty much new to me. But I'm looking forward to learn about, the different stages in life and how to help my elementary students. And well, I'm just excited to be here.
Good. Well, so you said, Letty, you said this is your 3rd class?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Awesome. What other classes have you taken?
Ethics and I can't remember the other one.
Ethics, man, you jumped into the deep end quick.
Yeah, I missed last semester. I missed your class. It was full.
Oh yeah.
I had to wait. Yeah, so I took ethics.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Good.
Hello, my name is Maria Hernandez, and I am on my 3rd semester of Amberton, and I graduated from Texas A&M Commerce with a sociology degree back in 2019, and I'm currently working in social work, and I'm studying to become an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, and yeah, and I live near Cattle Mills. Actually, I heard someone say Cattle Mills, and I thought that was cool. I live in Nevada, right next to Royce City.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's in the country area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with living in the country.
I love it, man.
That's okay. Good. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Glad to be here and I'm excited to start this semester.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Anybody else?
I'll go. Hi, my name is Macy. I'm from Dallas. I just graduated from my undergrad in May, unfortunately during COVID. But I was an accounting major, so this is kind of a 180 for me, and I went right into grad school. But I'm really excited. This is my 2nd semester at Amberton, or I guess 2nd quarter. But it's I have a feeling this class is going to be really interesting to me, just like my addiction class was. So I'm really excited. But yeah.
So
I'm
Macy,
excited to learn.
so you went from accounting to, what are you doing now? Are you doing?
So I'm pursuing an LPC. So
Okay.
yeah.
So what made you shift?
I graduated and decided I didn't want to be an accountant. So
All right.
had to
Okay.
find a different path there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. Did we miss any? I think we got everybody.
Oh,
All
I
right.
can go next.
Yeah.
I'm Monica Lopez. I am in my 3rd session at Emberton, and I am pursuing a degree in family studies. I live in Dallas, and I come from a background in foster care and adoptions, but I now work at a children's hospital. So I have worked with a lot of younger kids and adolescents. So I'm hoping to understand them better, maybe learn things that I didn't know before, and just also learn more about the elderly population, which I found very interesting in my aging and end of life class. Just learning about them, I didn't realize how much, they needed to be advocated for, and learning different, just in general about the elderly, I think would be very, very helpful.
I think this is interesting. We have I feel like we have a good mix of interest across the lifespan, which I think is good. And this is one of the reasons why I love Emberton. We have also a mix of experiences here, which I think is really good. And those experiences that you guys have, what's interesting about this class is that every developmental span we talk about, you either have experienced or are about to experience. And so it kind of gives you like personal, makes everything a little bit more personal. And what I find is this class becomes super personal, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This class is here to help you think about yourself, especially if you're going to help other people. You need to know about yourself. That helps a lot. So we'll talk more about that as we go. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what lifespan development is and what having a lifespan perspective, what that is. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So this is my almost 9th year at Emberton. So I've been here for a little while. I'm an LMFT, and I think the LMFT is a great way to go. LPC is a great way to go too. You can do just about anything with either one. It doesn't necessarily matter what you have. If you want to work with couples or families and you have an LPC, you can do that. The difference is maybe a little bit extra training and a little bit extra focus on relationships or relational dynamics or interactions with an LMFT. But having said that, what I've found is pretty much you can do basically the same things with either one. Of course, I'm probably more, I think LMFTs are probably better just because I am one, but that's just how that's how everything is. So I've been married for 22 years. I've got 2 kids. I've got a almost 14, almost 13. Before I did this, I was a youth pastor. I did that for almost 13 years. So I've been working with families, teenagers, families, marriages for almost 25 years in some capacity. The last 11 years have been in the clinical world. So I've worked with marriages of probably, I would say 85% of my practice, I have a private practice, is marital therapy. And then I just stopped working with adolescents for the first time in almost 25 years, which is kind of weird, but because I'm doing some other things. I'm actually doing a lot more, I'm kind of calling it parent coaching. When you have teenagers, I kind of coach parents on what that's like and what to do and how to think about it and things like that. So I'm doing a little bit more of that. I'm also an avid Peloton person. Like I'm totally into the Peloton cult, like all in, like all the way in. So I rode this morning at 5. I'm pretty avid with Peloton because I decided I'm getting older and I need to get in shape, and that's one way I'm doing it. And my wife talked me into getting a Peloton bike. And actually, my daughter, she's almost 13. She's ridden almost as many rides as I have, which is kind of cool too. So that's neat. When we talk about lifespan, I get really passionate about it because I really believe it's very important for us. And especially as clinicians, it's really important. And so I want to share, I'm going to share my screen. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And keep everything I'm talking about today is all in the book. This isn't going to be like super new information, but I do want to highlight a couple of things that I think are important. And you guys, if you have questions, like if I'm going through something and you want to ask questions, just jump on and ask. That's not going to bother me at all. I want us to think about two different things. Development is really kind of a pattern of change. And change starts at conception and ends with death. So when we're talking about development, we're going to talk specifically about development from conception to death. Now, most of the time we're going to be spending with specifically in the childhood, adolescent, and adulthood world. I'm not going to spend a lot of class time on pregnancy and potential disorders or diseases or issues that come from pregnancy. Although the book does a really good job of that, I'm not going to spend specific time on that. But I do want us to, I am going to talk about it from the standpoint of having kids and going from, let's say, a family of 2 to a family of 3 and then a family of 4. We're going to talk about things like that. And then we're also going to spend some time talking about parenting styles. We will do that too. And so if we think about development, it's just this pattern of change. But having a lifespan development or having a lifespan perspective, which I think is very important, that's when we talk about growth, maintenance, regulation. What does change look like biologically, socio-emotional, culturally, cognitively? One of the things that the book does a really good job of, I think, is breaks things down at each stage into the changes and the development that's happening cognitively, socio-emotionally, which is socially and emotional, and physical. Now we're going to talk at certain points also about spiritual change or spiritual factors as well. But the book does a really good job of kind of organizing everything that's discussed in those kind of buckets of lifespan development. So we're thinking cognitively, social, emotionally, and physically or biologically. So anytime we talk, we'll kind of cover all of those kinds of areas. And so when we think, so this is kind of like the 30,000 foot view of what we're going to be doing. And then we'll kind of get into the weeds a little bit. Development is always contextual. In other words, it always depends on a few things that are going on around you. It's lifelong, it's multidimensional, it's multidirectional, it's very plastic, multidisciplinary. We're going to talk about all these things as we go through. One of the things that's important to think about when we talk about development is that no one develops the same. Even in families, no one develops the same. You can read about studies done on twins that will show that people, even twins, develop differently, even though they have some similarities, because everybody's context is different. Everyone's even your experience inside your family can be different, and so everyone develops differently. That's not right or wrong. It's just different, right? There's not a right way or a wrong way when we're talking about development. Now, obviously, if we're talking about abusive or traumatic situations, that's definitely those can definitely be issues. We'll talk about how those types of situations impact development, because they definitely have a tremendous impact on development. The majority of the population doesn't have heavy traumatic situations, but the majority of people that you might work with clinically probably have had traumatic situations happen in their life. And trauma can be on a kind of a scale, on the continuum, where like, I'm not trying to rank trauma, because trauma is trauma, but some traumas tend to impact people differently than others. And we'll talk about a lot of those things too, especially when we talk specifically about emotional development. I think Z, you brought up attachment. I'm an attachment theorist, so you guys will just buckle up, because I'm going to give you a lot of attachment info. We're going to talk about attachment a lot. If you work with another, if you took this class with another professor, they might talk about their kind of how they see development. I see it through an attachment lens, because that's what resonates most with me. And we'll talk about some of those things too. Kind of talked about this: the biological process, cognitive process, psychological process. And again, all this stuff's in the book, but this is I've always liked this kind of look at the process and periods of development. So when we talk about, not that I don't care about prenatal and infancy, because I do, but we just don't have time to cover everything. So I'm picking and choosing certain timeframes to cover. And so I'm going to really hone in on I'm going to say the age 5 or 6, up until probably age 12 or 13 is going to be one whole class. We're just going to dive right in there. Another whole class will be looking at that 18 into the mid 20s. We're going to kind of dive right into that period. And then another whole class will be kind of 30s and on. We'll kind of dive right into those areas too. And we'll talk about specific things that happen. I'm also going to spend a significant amount of time talking about things that happen clinically for you that might come up during these times or during these developmental periods. Always with the mind for the biological, social, emotional, and cognitive, those things that are going on, because that's very important. I'll give you an example. If we talk, quite a few of you mentioned adolescence. So there's 2 periods of a human being's life that their brain is the most active in terms of change and taking things in, taking information in and using it or applying it. That's it between birth and age 4 or so. And then from around 12 until like 20. So an adolescent, the reason why sometimes they appear a certain way or come across a certain way is because their brains are chaotic at a certain level. Not in a bad way. It needs to happen, but they're really in the middle of pruning and grooming things in their brains to either keep or get rid of. And sometimes they don't know what to do with it. And if their context, if their surroundings are chaotic, that has a lot to do with what's going on. There's just a lot of factors. So when we talk about adolescence, keep in mind that we're talking about a time of brain development that is super active. And that's why sometimes they appear to be So I've heard some people say crazy brain, which is, it kind of appears that way. It's not necessarily hormonal as much as it's neurological. But we'll talk about that specifically. But that's an example of like knowing about that process or some of the processes that are going on during adolescence. If you know some of those things, like I met with I was working with a couple this week that have teenagers, and we were kind of talking about it. And I just kind of brought this idea up to them and kind of walked them through just a couple of things with some examples. And all of a sudden you can see their minds opening up like, oh, okay, now I understand why some of these things might be happening. And the only reason why you do that is because if you have understanding, sometimes you can have empathy. When you have empathy, then you're taking someone else's perspective. When you have empathy and take someone else's perspective, it tends to lessen conflict, in which we'll talk again. We're going to, some of this, I'm just kind of hitting some highlights. When we get into the middle adulthood to late adulthood, we're going to talk about kind of being sandwiched between generations or sandwiched between developmental stages, because some folks might have kids at home and might be caring for their parents. That's another whole phenomenon that goes on for folks, and that could last a couple of years, maybe a decade. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen during that time too. Nature versus nurture is a consistent debate, has been a consistent debate, will always be a debate. So obviously the nature is like the biology, the things you inherit, your DNA, your genetic makeup, that's all the nature pieces of what we're made of. The nurture is the experiences you've had based on your environment that you've been in, right? So there's some theories that are super nature based, some theories are nurture based. And we'll talk about some of those. And I've got some of those listed on Moodle there that you can look at. The real answer really is that it's really about, when we talk about development, there's going to be a time where things are stable in your development, but in order to grow, what needs to happen? Thing needs to be a little bit unstable to grow, to reach another stage of development, which is kind of a difficult, because typically we might grab some of our clients, especially if they're younger, during those stages where they're kind of in between developmental stages, and there's a lot of discombobulation or there's a lot of chaos for them, but they're ready to take another step. They just haven't figured that out yet. So that's when we get people a lot of times. But growth is all about stages of continuity and discontinuity, when things are okay and then when things aren't. That's what growth is. That's how it happens. But in order for us to go from one stage to the next, we have to have a little bit of shakiness in there. That's how we grow, which is, if you think about it, it doesn't sound very fun, but if we don't have that, we don't grow. That's kind of how we're wired too. Neurologically speaking, that makes a lot of sense. You guys, does that make sense what I'm talking about? Hopefully, I hope. Okay. All right. There's a couple other things I want to bring up, but I want to make sure. Hang on just 1 second, sorry. I do want to talk about this theory, and we're going to talk about theories throughout. There's going to be lots of times we're going to talk about specific theories. One particular theory that's not necessarily in the book, but is something that in terms of our faith, we there's actually a few things written about the experience of faith and the development of faith as it pertains to our developmental life cycle. One overarching aspect of this theory or the Christian existential theory is that we have a purpose, and not just that we're not just chaotically here, that we have a direction and purpose. And at the same time, we do have some certain structures that happen or that occur. And so we're in this constant state of becoming something more, and which kind of tracks with a lot of theories of development, that we're kind of constantly growing, constantly changing, constantly becoming something more. One of the things about Christian existential theory that I think is very important is something that we're probably discovering now, is that connectedness is also very important. In other words, our brains are really wired for connection with people. I mean, that's really how we're wired. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as extroversion or introversion, because there is. But even if you're introverted, you still have a wiring to be connected to people. And we really do well when those connections are actually very safe and secure. Matter of fact, the more safe and secure those connections are, the better we tend to do. Doesn't mean we don't have problems, just means we do really well, which is really the basis of attachment theory. So I think our brains are hardwired to be in connection. So again, I'm saying this as Chris's opinion, but there's a lot of really good evidence that the more connected we are and the more safe those connections feel, the better we tend to do, and which is again the basis of attachment theory. We won't jump into any of these things yet.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So as far as that goes, do you think that religion itself, I mean, I really believe that religion itself has some sort of evolutionary purpose and things like that, but how would you compare that with other faiths and things like that?
So
I'm just wondering why that one's singled out.
Yeah, I think you can look at faith in general. So I'm trying to think of, I would say that probably each of the major religious faiths in the world probably would say something similar in terms of being connected with people. I would say they might do it differently. They might go about practicing it differently. That might happen. But I think there's overall a pretty firm belief that being in connection with other people, especially if those connections are safe, contributes to your faith or contributes to your belief system. But if you don't have safe connections, and actually, honestly, in any of those major faith traditions, if even your faith connection is not safe, that really has a big impact on you. For example,
For sure.
if you're whether you're you would say I'm Christian or I'm Muslim or I'm Buddhist, if you had a abusive experience in that faith tradition, that's going to affect your faith system, period. And I think it's because of our connection or our kind of wiring for connection. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect
Hopefully.
sense. Yeah, it's how you connect to the rest of the world and your experience, and yeah,
Right.
Sure. Sorry, I was just curious.
So, no, that's a good question. I think, not to get too deep into the weeds, but Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, a development. So, and there's lots of examples of, like, if you go online and Google Bronfenbrenner, you'll get tons of like graphics like this. This is kind of like micro, macro, looking at how connection happens and how we are connected to other people. So now I'm gonna divert. So I'm on a rabbit trail now. I get on rabbit trails. Sorry, excuse me. So a little bit of a rabbit trail. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about systems theory, which is the basis of MFT work. Systems. So Bronfenbrenner was basically a systems person. So the basic idea, basic idea, is that we're all part of systems, like we're parts, right? And so I am an individual, but I'm also part of this family or school, this microsystem here, right? But there's a mesosystem and there's an exosystem, which I have family and friends, and I'm part of a neighborhood, right? And in essence, I'm also part of Amberton, which is part of an exosystem. But in macrosystems, I'm also part of a culture, right? And I travel in between all these systems, right? Like I'm in and out of all these systems all the time. If something happens in one part of this system, what happens to the other part? Something that happens there too. Like a ripple, right? For example, in my family, let's say, I'm just making this examples up. Like if my wife and I get into a fight in front of our kids, does it affect my kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not about them, right? But it affects them. So systems affect other systems, right? Parts affect other parts. And so that's, to me, kind of like what I was saying, Monica, in terms of like, you know, if I have a connection, if I have a good solid connection in one piece of my life, right? That really helps me in other pieces or other parts of my life. Even though we could have a hard connection or a damaged connection with our family. And that would have an influence on us too. So I mean, we're all there's parts that are connected to each other, and the faith part is just another part of that connection. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, perfectly. No, that's great. Thanks.
I probably talked way too much. That's like a really long answer to a short question.
I love that, but
I tend to do that. So, and this is a you know, what we're talking about now is very nuanced too. We'll talk about culture kind of as we go. I'll talk about culture a lot. So culture is big, right? We're talking about gender, ethnicity, could be faith, could be belief systems, you know, age. I mean, culture is huge. Language or vocabulary, you know, culture is a large one. We have to be culturally aware. We have to be culturally competent, which we'll talk about. You know, we're gonna talk about that too. Anyway, so this is just one example of some developmental theories that are out there. There's a bunch of them. Especially the first part of the book, there'll be a ton of discussion, whether it's Freud or Piaget or Bronfenbrenner or Vygotsky. I mean, there's lots of different folks but some of them focus more on the kind of the nature piece, and some of them focus on the nurture. Some of those theories were developed through scientific exploration. Some of those theories were developed through observation, very good observation, but through observation. And so, but those are the big ones, especially Piaget and Erikson. We tend to use a lot more usually in the school world, especially or in academic circles. Those are used quite often, which is fine. So having said all of that, what we're going to do as we keep kind of moving through each class, I'll probably use a little bit of a combination of some of the slides and then some discussions as we go through. And I'm not looking to always agree on everything either. That's fine. We don't have to always agree on everything. I'll give what I think and kind of my opinion sometimes, and you can do that too. That's okay. I think we need to have a spot where we can just kind of talk and discuss things, even if we don't see it the same way. That's okay. If we saw it the same way, it'd be really boring. There'd be no reason to learn. So, okay. Do you guys have any questions about anything?
I don't have a question, but I do want to highlight something that you and Monica were talking about, and that is when you said that that we were created to connect. And I think that just if we remove faith, because I know that sometimes that can cause people their minds, depending on their personal reference point as it relates to that, it can make them go a certain place. Okay. If we remove faith, it's still the underlining truth is that we were still created to connect and be in relationship with other people. I just think about just one example and how when a baby is delivered, how immediately, if it is at all possible, they place that baby on the mom. Why? Probably because they've been there for 40 weeks and that's what they know. And so why not return them back to what comes natural to make them feel comfortable? The other thing that sticks out, and this may just be Z, it just may be me, is just how we're naturally, physically, or physiologically made to connect to, for women, to a male, male to, and how those dynamics, does that make sense? When I'm talking about like downstairs, how that naturally connects.
Yeah.
Just my own little observation for whatever.
I think to your point about connection, like with like babies, especially. So, you can try this now as adults even. Skin to skin contact between a baby and mom or dad automatically creates new neural connections in their brain. Their brain starts growing new neural connections immediately. And actually, if you want to experience a part of that, even as an adult, go and hold the hand of someone you love and care about, that cares and loves you. Just hold their hand, and you'll have the same. Now you might not. It doesn't mean you're like, it's like this isn't a Hollywood movie. We're talking about real life. Like you'll have a neural connection with that person. I've had multiple sessions, especially this past year, as I'm doing all my sessions online. And I have my clients do this when I'm face to face, but I will oftentimes ask them to hold each other's hand. And it's amazing what happens when they hold each other's hand, especially when they're really mad at each other.
Can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for answering, and Z, that was really good insight. I think part of the reason why I was asking questions is just because of that. I think I'm interested in learning more about attachment theory as well, because of how much that affects, like you were talking about the systems theory, like each thing affects the other. So, like being hardwired to need each other. I would go so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have insight, that like the faith part of it and that's part of like part of nurturing our need for that attachment. Like it creates a purpose, it creates like that feeling of connection that we need. Does that make sense? So it's like, I would think that it's like a function of our survival in some ways, because as humans we need each other. So like having that attachment, if a child feels like they have an insecure attachment to their mother, it almost it's like on their level that's death, because it's like they will not be fed, they will not be taken care of and nurtured, right? Like on the most primal level. But then whenever you get to like these emotional things, it becomes like it affects the other thing. So I think that kind of creates a family in some ways, like having a overarching like thing that your culture all kind of surrounds itself with. I don't know if I'm off topic, but that was really insightful.
No, you're fine. No, I think this is good. I think what you're talking about is two things. We have physical needs that we just have to have, and then we have emotional needs, and they're connected. And too often, to be honest with you, so now we're talking clinically for a second. most of the time we grow up knowing about physical needs. We very seldom talk about emotional needs. Very seldom, especially men don't, for sure. But just because, your gender doesn't also, your gender doesn't mean that you all of a sudden know how to be a socially aware or emotionally aware either. So really, we're talking about two things, and we're going to talk more about this because attachment is at the basis of it, about security and safety at the base, and then kind of everything that comes from that. So what I think the more you guys get into the class and the more you read, which there's a lot, I'm sorry, there's a lot of information. But the more you get into it, I think you're going to have more questions, which is good. All right, now we're going to stop. And now I'm going to ask you guys to go do something else and go have fun on your Saturday. All right. And we'll meet in 2 weeks from now. We'll meet again. And I'll put this up online too, if you want to watch again for folks. And so if you missed the class, sorry, you get an F in the class. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Hey, you guys have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you too. Bye.
Thank you.